saw a werewolf with a Chinese menu in his hand.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the view of Wolfpack Research or any of its officers. The views and opinions expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on this program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. We are not investment advisors. We hold no registrations with the SEC, FINRA, or any other regulatory agency, and none of the opinions expressed on this podcast should be considered investment advice. The listener should assume that we have positions in and stand to benefit from any stock or other security mentioned on this podcast. Do your own research before making investment decisions.
Welcome to the Wolf Den, everybody. This is Dan David coming at you with the pack, and by the pack, I mean, Carl, the sound guy.
Sound Carl, yes.
Oh, is it Sound Carl now?
Sound Carl. There's a trademark on it.
Yeah. You disgust me. You actually like short Carl, the sound guy, for your fan club, and now it's Sound Carl.
Sound Carl, yes.
You're sick. Carl needs to be careful today because our guest couldn't get him drunk, and at his convenience, have a small group of indigenous people stomp him with horses. So I'm looking forward to that. Retired Master Sergeant Scott Neal is a veteran of the U.S. Special Forces, Green Berets, with executive and operational and combat experience. In addition to his speaking engagements, he is a regular contributor on Fox News, CNN, Newsmax, Global News, LA Times, Bloomberg, and Business Week. He is also the chief operating officer of Horse Soldier Bourbon. Yes.
You know how many times people get that wrong? Depends on how many drinks they have. They start to slur it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? When people start to slur Horse Soldier Bourbon, you know you're having a good time.
Yes. Yes.
Which we're going to talk about today, along with his military exploits. Scott's military career has seen him in almost every combat and conflict zone across the globe. Following the events of 9/11, he conducted numerous successful special operation combat missions as a part of Commanders in Extremist Forces, one of the first to lead the direct action and counterterrorism charge into Afghanistan. And I do mean charge in Afghanistan. We'll talk more about that and the horses. As you can imagine, Scott has been blown up several times. And we'll get into that as well.
Awesome.
Eventually, he was sent to recover and continue services at Headquarters and Special Operations Command. Scott is an important voice for veteran community, legitimately doing God's work as a part of his drive to help combat veterans receive necessary support to ensure their successful reintegration into civil society. While working at the Green Beret Foundation, Scott developed and launched a transition and resiliency program for the Green Berets called the Next Ridgeline that has been featured in Veterans Day tributes by Google and the National Museum, 9/11 Museum. Scott, welcome.
Yay. Woo-hoo. That was a long one. That guy's awesome. I want to meet him too.
I'll tell you, when you meet him, number one, everybody calls him Scotty. Is that cool?
Yes.
Do we call you Scotty here?
Well, you can call me Scotty. You know, on Special Forces teams are very close knit. You know, there's only 12 of us, and one of the first teams I served on, there were 3 Scotts.
Yeah.
Right. So it was Scott, Scooter, and Scotty. So I was the youngest at the time, so I got the Scotty, and just kind of.
Well, it could have been Scooter. So
it could have been worse.
No, it's funny, it's Scooter, but Scooter unfortunately can't scoot because he lost both of his legs, a few years back.
That became ironic. That's terrible.
Yeah. See, but life is triumphs and tragedies, and what you see and you'll hear in this story we'll talk about is how a bunch of friends grew up together in service, and now we serve bourbon.
Well, tell us about your story, and we'll talk about the bourbon because I've tried it with you. It's great. And I will say, before you get into your story, I even, visiting my father in Michigan, got a liquor store to start carrying your bourbon, and I think he's doing okay.
Yeah, we just opened up Michigan. I think Mark, the Horse Soldier commander, was there doing a bottle signing outside of Detroit the week, right before the New Year's. And Michigan obviously is a kind of a control franchise, not a franchise, but a control state. We're waiting for it to blossom as the mechanisms of the state start working its magic on getting this distributed.
Well, good luck to you in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, LCB.
This business, I think, is more clever and interesting than just making bourbon that we've discovered. It's people, it's bureaucracies, it's fiefdoms, it's $1 million brands that want to squat on, small craft. In the beginning of all of this, we thought we would just make what we thought was great whiskey, and that would be enough. And that's not enough.
No,
it
rarely is.
This is a lifetime of full-time work.
Well, I hope you're finding it rewarding, especially after what you had to go through for, decades. And tell us about your military career. How did you matriculate there, and what was that all about? And shortly after 9/11.
So, I joined the Army back in 1986. Always wanted to be in the Army, play cops and robbers and cowboys and Indians. And I think like anybody else, I burnt my share of Army men with magnifying glasses. So right out of high school, I joined the infantry and I went to Fort Ord, California. That was 1986. Of course, for those that remember, Panama was a kind of a small excursion live fire exercise where we beat up some third world countries. And after that, I wanted to join the Special Forces. So I went through the assessment selection process. And out of the 360, I went through selection with 60, made it to the end. And out of that 60, 42 finally went on to become Green Berets.
Wow.
So in 1993, I went to the 5th Special Forces Group at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and our area of focus was the Middle East. So I started going in for usually about 4 to 6 months at a time, anywhere from Kuwait to Kenya to Ethiopia, Eritrea, Yemen, Oman, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Pakistan.
Yeah, all of these quiet paradises that you could just go relax.
All the best spots. We get the vacation.
Before we continue, one, I guess this means you were in Desert Storm, but two, I think listeners want to know sometimes, what's the difference between a Green Beret and an Army Ranger?
Well, number one, you start with the color of the hat.
Yeah, okay, I'm with you so far.
Yeah,
there you go.
Easy to identify.
Yes, the Green Beret is the hat.
Yeah.
So
I'm guessing it's a beret.
It's a beret.
Okay.
So there's an umbrella, and imagine this umbrella as big curvature of special operations. So special operations. An operation could be a hostage rescue. It could be foreign internal defense. It could be unconventional warfare. It could be weapons of mass destruction. Those are the operations. Then you have the operator. And the operator is trained and focuses on a certain set of those operations. So Delta Force tends to focus on direct action, counterterrorism, and weapons of mass destruction. Army Rangers, direct action, a little bit of strategic reconnaissance. Green Berets, direct action, strategic reconnaissance, and unconventional warfare. Navy SEALs, hair care products, swimsuits, and book writing.
Wow.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Wow. Do we have a drop the gauntlet thing here?
Yeah. But those are the operators that do operations, right? So when you say what is the difference? Yeah, okay, distinctive headgear, yes. Rangers tend to be out of high school. They're younger. They're in a 60-man kind of fighting element. So they're organized different. Green Berets are in 12 men, one officer, one warrant, one master sergeant, and the rest are E7s or E6s with varying skills.
Well, that's pretty high up there, though, E7s and 6s. You've done some time then.
The average Green Beret tends to already have 10 years in service and be about 30 years old.
Okay.
Whereas SEALs and Rangers, the average age is 20, 22, really spry, very fit, right? But more of the hammer, where Green Berets tend to be more mountain men and Leatherman tool aspects. So think of a big toolbox for the commander. He sees what the mission is. He pulls out the tool set and deploys a tool set against the problem.
Mm-hmm. So your commander refers to you as tools.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you say yes, sir.
Yeah, that's where it all comes from. See, the military originates a lot of our modern day slang.
You know what? That is a true fact.
Yes.
You were in Desert Storm I don't know if you were a Green Beret then, but you were in the military.
No, I missed that Desert Storm. I was going through the training and it was over just like that.
It was pretty quick.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
It was as fast as a first time could be. But when I finally got to 5th Special Forces Group, my very first Special Forces teams are the ones that ran the Kuwaiti Underground. So when we would go back to Kuwait, they knew all the leadership of the military, all of the royal family. It was a different time in the 90s post Gulf War. But remember, we were always on edge for Saddam and any of his activities. So we would always do a rotation, maybe once a year. But there was always a company of Green Berets in Iraq after the Gulf War.
Yeah. And for all of you financial geniuses who were in high school during the financial crash of 2008, Desert Storm takes you way back. We're talking 1990-ish. And it was a huge buildup, like you would not believe going into this. Much bigger force than we actually had for the second Iraq war. But George Bush Sr., being the most underrated president in my time and one of my favorites, was smart enough to say, okay, we did this and I don't want to own it. So we're leaving.
At the time, it was called the Powell Doctrine for Colin Powell as the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which was basically hit it and quit it.
Hit it, quit it, yeah.
Hit it and quit it.
Wow.
You know what I mean? We don't own it. We just break it.
Hit it and quit it. I like it.
That's exactly what he did. But there's a little known fact with President Bush Sr., and I've got to know President Bush Jr.-ish, I'll call him, is Saddam tried to assassinate President Bush.
Really?
I don't know that that's you didn't know that.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Within a month or two after Desert Storm.
And his son took it personal. So fast forward.
Well, and Cheney and Rumsfeld took it very personally. Used it as an excuse, but Clinton was president by the time the reaction to that was doled out.
Yeah.
And I believe Clinton sent like 3 cruise missiles in an area where Saddam might have hunted. I don't know, but like there was no chance of killing the guy. He just sent a couple.
Yeah.
And Junior was supremely insulted. Is that correct?
I believe your recollection is nearly accurate.
Okay, well, correct me.
No, it is. So I say all these things in jest, but what people forget is 1990, it was what we call the first Gulf War. It was this doctrine of overwhelming force. All of the statistics of the Iraqi army, the 5th largest mechanized, motorized, modern army with new Soviet equipment and air assets and everything, they went in heavy. And they decimated them and routed them biblically and pushed them to what the military objective was, is to expel them out of Kuwait. And then that turned into kind of this rotation of armor brigades, because they had a whole desert to play around in and a whole bunch of Iraqi equipment laying around, that it became this kind of annual kind of test of leadership and deployment, kept on all the way until the invasion of 2003.
Well, yeah, and when we did push them out in record time, and as a matter of fact, the toughest thing about the Iraqi army was catching them from behind. I mean, these guys were fleet of foot.
Well, remember, he stuck half of his infantry in a foxhole with a 5-gallon can. They couldn't surrender fast enough, which was part of the delaying tactic. And then you had battles of 73 Easting, right? This big maneuver tank battle in which our small Bradley vehicles were outgunning the modern tank. So that's where McMaster's of fame came from, all of that. And the biggest takeaway was when they set all the oil fields on fire.
Yeah.
They thought it would take 10 years to put them out. And then some Ukrainians put a jet engine on the back of a T-55 tank and blew them out like candles within 3 weeks.
Yeah. And then we made Basra the line.
Yeah.
Right. We just pushed everybody north of Basra, kind of ish, for a while.
Yeah.
And there was that betrayal kind of feeling. Basra felt like, because they were predominantly Shia, were not protected in the end from the Sunni dictator Saddam.
Yes. Then you had these no-fly zones, right, from the Kurds in the north to some of the cities in the south. And, once again, these are details that the average citizen, maybe you remember, but haven't really understood. the complexity that led up to the invasion again in 2003. So they were a lot of loose ends. So when you take the Powell doctrine of smash and dash, there's a lot of loose ends, and we spent 10 years trying to figure it out. Well, okay, we invade Iraq again, and guess what? We're spending another 10 years trying to figure it out.
Well, I guess going to 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
Look, if you're just listening to your enemy at any point in time, the fact that we used Saudi Arabia and then kept a base there became the focal point, in their words, for attacking us. And then they did throughout the 90s. They went after the World Trade Center once.
Yep.
Unfortunately for us, during Clinton administration.
Yep.
They blew up a warship, the USS Cole.
Yep.
Again, unfortunately, in that administration. And we didn't do much about either of those things. And then came 9/11.
So once again, let's go even further back into way back. During the invasion of Afghanistan by the Russians, we supported what was a loose-knit kind of the Mujahideen. Now, Mujahideen are a little bit different than jihad, right? Mujahideen are more of the local fighters, who live in the area that come together, and they've been the same assembly of fighters against the British and, the hordes of Hannibal and everything. Then when the Soviets invaded, it was a good time to send our CIA and Green Berets in there to test some of our newly
Stingers.
minted equipment like Stinger missiles, because the Soviets had air power and they could drop bombs from altitudes. So it disrupted the war. But then on a call to jihad, you had these more
Fundamentalists
that already had started in Pakistan in madrasas. And what's important is called the third son. If you grow up in a Muslim family, your first son inherits your father's business. Your second son escorts mom out of the village and can go grocery shopping. The third son sits on a rock and looks at the goats. And I'm paraphrasing this, but they become vulnerable to be recruited to go for further education in madrasas.
Well, and madrasa is just another word for school.
It is kind of that religious awakening to become on the journey. So there was already this process for hundreds of years to identify those in the family that could be recruited and sent to this furthering education, then they would be on their own preaching journey elsewhere. So now they use that pipeline and formula to rally like-minded fundamentalists in Afghanistan, where they could train and create each other. And because they didn't have MTV or Nintendo, they would talk about this idea of this perfect space on Earth, and they could have the power to create that. Then I call it the jihadi VFW. Then that cadre broke apart after the war. They went back to the four corners. Some became wealthy. Some became even more radicalized. Some came into power through politics. And you had various groups organized. One of those was Al-Qaeda. And, that began the path of Afghanistan as a training ground, Pakistan and madrasas as a pipeline for bodies, which, led us into small actions. Now, if I'm nobody and I want to be somebody, I've got to fight Mayweather and I got to fight Ali. And so a lot of these were just considered sucker punches to gain credibility, not for our distraction, but for their fundraising and recruiting efforts, right?
Right.
See, we can deliver this. We can do these things. And I think we discounted their total belief in their lifelong mission to establish a caliphate and then dislodge America's financial power and military power out of the Middle East. See, here we are. We're 30 minutes into it. We just had a history of the world.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, you're right, but we discounted the fact that when your school, madrasas, are solely dedicated to not educating in science, math, language, things of this nature, but dedicated toward fighting this imperialist power, whether it be Russia, the United States, or anybody else, and Islam above all else, and the word of it, ignorance prevails. I mean, you don't know a better life.
I'll help you reshape that.
Okay.
They weren't fighting schools. They were in their religion no different than a seminary, a place that focused on the study and the aspects of following the path of enlightenment of the Quran.
I thought I just said that.
I'm just giving you the wave top.
Okay. All right.
Underneath what it turned into was, boy, that person used to be a doctor. He went on the path and he's here today. I bet you they have critical skills we may need over here. And just like our ROTCs come on the campuses, right, and said, wouldn't you like to be a Marine, son? Let's not forget, we have the same mechanisms in our own institutions here.
Yeah.
So that's what it became. It became an age-old method to take a certain amount of males from the family that really didn't have a hierarchy, and the family was proud to send them on their journey. They self-funded, they did fundraisers. Then they would go to madrasas. Some were what they were meant to be, and others were infestations of radicalization, and they would pick a certain class for warriors. They would pick a certain class for service and support. They would pick a certain class that might want to meet their ends in suicide bombings. All of that was filtered. And so, once again, why was America's attention turned to Afghanistan in 2001? Because it had been going on for 15, 17 years. Right. And all of that old Soviet armor equipment, weapons, blasting caps, all of that was just stockpiled and left there. So they had the capability to train themselves, form committees. They would buy airport commercial grade metal detectors and test things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, now you're getting a little too spunky.
Yeah.
So all of this was happening while America's view on real aggression was North Korea, China, Iran, Russia. And so what did they do? They would punch upwards and do these attacks, but the attacks didn't serve to topple America in the beginning. They served to bring credibility, to bring more funding to their endeavors. Look, we're on the radar and we could do things too.
We blow up more shit than anybody else. Come join us.
Yeah. Well, it seems that was effective to a degree. And it's fascinating, and it makes complete sense that, yeah, of course, everybody would believe they have this equipment left over from the Russians' invasions, and even better equipment today, I might add, after our debacle. But just savvy and smart to have those metal detectors and start testing out what they had done.
That's when you transition from a hobbyist, right, to junior state sponsored. You know what I mean? When you're using commercial access to technologies for security and defense, and then you have research and development activity that helps you bypass detection, overcome some things. All of that happens every day. And why are we always worried about a North Korea or Iran or some of these other things? It's not because we're worried about North Korea invading us. It's because they're a proxy for advanced weapons testing, and the world will bitch about North Korea.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So what was 9/11 like for you? I mean, because that changed the course of your life more dramatically than most people.
I think 9/11, we were on a training exercise on the Cumberland River in Kentucky. Like say we're at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and we were getting ready on 1 October to go in the Middle East anyways, a normal rotation. I was part of a group at the time that was called the Commanders in Extremis Forces, and that was just a tool to be in the area that could immediately respond to some kind of activity, whether it's a embassy or a cruise liner, think any kind of counterterrorism activity.
And you trained for that?
Yeah. It was fun. Got to blow a lot of doors and windows and buildings and shoot guns and be sniper ninjas.
Awesome.
Right? The Army issued us throwing stars. So
cool.
During that weekend leading up to 9/11, We had some of our sniper observer teams out on a mock kind of farm reporting terrorist training activity. And all of this wasn't because we thought we knew 9/11 was happening. It was just a training scenario so we could certify through the element that we're ready to go overseas. And in Special Forces, you have two teams that are kind of sister teams. One was 595 and ours is our other specialized team. And I remember when the morning of 9/11, our intel sergeant came in and he wrote on our whiteboard in our kind of planning facility that the World Trade Center has been hit. And we actually thought it was just part of the training exercise. We had no access to TV. So we're like, okay, we're in this counterterrorism scenario. Okay, why are they attacking the World Trade Center? So an hour later, he comes in and says the second World Trade Center has been hit. And we're like, okay, complex attack. What does the World Trade Center represent? The financial institutions, the United States, blah, blah, blah. We started sending in requests for information on our training exercise portal. And it wasn't until 4 hours later that Colonel Mulholland came in and said, stop what you're doing. This is for real. And if you did see the movie 12 Strong, we went to the mess hall like everybody else and saw it on CNN. So that's how it began.
Yeah, this is all based on, as well, we should say, and, Carl, screw up number one. There's a movie called 12 Strong that is based upon your experience and the Horse Soldiers.
Yes.
And I did see it, so that's how that went. You guys went in the mess hall, and there's the debriefing.
Yes. And just like you saw in this fabulous Hollywood movie, every aspect is absolutely true, to include how good-looking Chris Hemsworth is.
Oh, you look just like him.
I wasn't Chris Hemsworth, number one, because that's the first lie. Bullshit. Mark isn't that good-looking.
You're not actually, your name's not in it, right? Like, as far as the guy.
I was the horse.
You were the horse.
Yes. I was a gallant black steed.
Yeah.
That they rode in on. So the first awareness of this all came from the book Horse Soldiers from Doug Stanton. Of course, Doug came in and interviewed everybody. Not everybody was still alive. Not everybody was still on the team. So you got a small perspective. Most guys were kind of voluntold that they need to tell the story.
Right.
That's why all the names in it are fake synonyms and not real ones, because we were all still operational, and you had a lot of filler about Call of Jangi and some of the other command teams coming in.
Yeah.
So when Jerry Bruckheimer bought the script rights, Disney shelved the ability for him to write it for several years until he bought it back. He then had a script writer get with Jerry Bruckheimer, not Bruckheimer, but Doug Stanton. They developed the script. And once again, Doug didn't know really the true story. Then they began the filming process. So Bruckheimer hired his favorite military advisor, who was a Navy SEAL, and his Navy SEAL called his Navy SEAL buddies. And they began to design the movie, the outfits, all this other stuff. And it wasn't until 5 days into filming that Mark and Bob were invited on set. And that was on Friday. And by Sunday, the lawyers asked them to leave. And that's about it.
Well, all right. Well, the movie will show you soldiers riding on horses, killing the enemy. But I think that happened. So tell us what did happen.
Ish.
Yeah.
This big scene of a proud, gallant European black horse in full war rating saddle and shooting from the hip at a gallant run, led by the commander of ODA 5. Bullshit.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Cranky, janky Mustang horses with carpets over a piece of wood. It was the Afghans that led wave after wave against direct fire tanks, you know what I mean? Rocket fire, everything. Green Berets, we enable our indigenous partners to be successful, but it's their battle to fight. What
are 12 of you going to do? I mean, you're dropped into a war zone. What was it, a week or two after 9/11?
On the 19th of October, 2001. You think about it, the bombing started on October 7th, and then the Air Force is like, really, hitting, oh, I just got a pile of rocks. Oh, we bombed a pile. There was no traditional targeting that an Air Force hits a bridge, a power station, a command center. They had no clue.
Right.
So that's when it was like, we got to shift gears along with our CIA partners to understand what is going on the ground, what is the order of battle from the Taliban army, what influence and support did Al-Qaeda provide in leadership and fighters. There was a big question mark. So insertion of Green Berets teams is basically go figure it out.
Right.
And tell me what's going on, paint a picture. And so nobody knew things were going to be on horseback.
I mean, before you even get dropped in, like, how do you even find the, like, hey, this guy will side with me, rather than the, yeah, I'll be your friend. Open this briefcase here.
Yeah. How do you not get dropped into unfriendly fire?
So General Dostum had already known some congressional aides from his exile in Turkey. So they are very savvy business people and understand the politics of the world. When 9/11 happened, he actually called them and said, I know who did it. I got the forces. I just need American support. So they actually won the Super Bowl on 9/11.
I bet they got paid.
They know who did it. They were already fighting them. They had loose organizations. And what America had to understand is, who was a credible player, who had a fighting spirit that would want to, go on, who had legitimacy that potentially could form a new government. So there's 1,000, I don't know, questions. Well, guess what? What is the tool set?
Green Berets, go figure it out.
Yep. So you get on this helicopter, fly to this location. Nobody's coming to get you. Maybe we'll see you in the springtime. And here's 2 batteries, go.
Yeah.
Oh.
Here's 2 batteries, drop you out of a helicopter, go.
So remember, it just wasn't one team. Altogether, I think there was less than 100 Green Berets, and in 100 days, we had overtaken Afghanistan, along with our CIA partners. Yes, we had some Ranger elements and some other national assets that were focused on a few things, but it really was faster than the Gulf War and in 2003, the Iraqi War. That's how fast it was over.
With just a few less, operators.
Yeah.
Like hundreds of thousands less.
Here's your country. You're welcome.
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely. That is you are an American hero. I mean, people throw that around, but you are. Not the least of which, I heard you tell this story, and you give a great presentation. And as we were...
Whiskey helps.
Well, the whiskey came later. And as I remember when I'm talking to you, I'm like, I'm going to have to ask Scotty this question because I'm kind of an animal lover. Scotty, did you have this horse that you really kind of fell in love with, that saved your life, that you thought was great? And you're like, are you kidding me? These things were barely donkeys. You think they're going to give us their best horse? They gave us their worst horse, and those horses were terrible.
Yeah.
And you had no interest in taking one back with you.
Different horse every day. No, because as soon as we found a truck, we took the truck. Think about the video game and Mad Max. Fuck this horse. I'm getting in that, technical truck. Screw this technical truck. I got a tank. So imagine, we're already went native, as, we love to say, and you could do what you wanted to do, and you had to do, and you needed to do, right?
Yeah.
And, once again, you're building, 12 could do nothing. 300 could do something. 5,000 did a lot. Right. So if you come from that mindset of by, with, and through, and then technology enables your force to fight better than the opponent they're fighting. You know what I mean? Why was the Taliban better than the Mujahideen fighters? Because they had all the old Russian equipment.
Right. They were
Not that they were Ivy League educated, graduates of military structured school. It's because one guy had a horse and the other one had a tank.
Yeah.
Now, when you disrupt that, think of your TV show, Star Wars, right? You don't go down to the planet with all your phasers and tricorders and all the other stuff. You go there and you make them a little bit better than their enemy, and you let them fight for it, and you let them die for it. And you support them with some military consulting. You support them with imagery and satellite communications. You support them with verified just-in-time close air support, right? Because what we worried about is them bombing their other buddies. Like, woohoo, I could be king of the world. Let me get rid of my rival. Well, we're using his rival as well. We use the tools we have. So that was how it was. And by the end, I think, you know that the war got turned back on during Anaconda.
Operation Anaconda.
When larger forces of the 101st Airborne and 10th Mountain were like, woohoo, we're here. Where's the war at? Well, there's like 150 idiots in a cave complex and a trench line on that mountain over there. Just give them 3 weeks and they'll walk on down because they don't have any food. No. We're going to go up there. Why is that? I mean, no, really, just wait a couple of weeks and they'll get hungry and they'll come on down.
Right. And that's what the locals would have told them to do.
Yeah, that's what they said. That's why they didn't participate. They're like, I'm not going up there.
Yeah. And you're talking about these were extremely brave men.
Yeah.
Who really did ride horseback into cannon fire.
They don't know the difference. They believe that Allah is on their side, right? They believe in the Viking Valhalla aspects of a glorious death, right? They had no fear, 0.0. Now, they weren't stupid. Now, you know what I mean? Here, put your face in front of this muzzle. No. But as far as this is my task and my commander is riding along beside me, yes.
I mean, were any of you and your other fellow Green Berets just kind of watching this going, can you believe this? I mean, can you believe these guys are just riding?
Charging a machine gun nest.
Tiny little horses. Not even stallions, right? War horses. Just these tiny little donkeys at these machine guns.
You spent that entire time becoming friends. Right? We ate what they ate. We slept on what they slept on. That's the difference between what you kind of saw in the latter half of Afghanistan was these big barracks and comfort and you are you and we are we. We almost like Dances with Wolves, right? When Kevin Costner finally, lives in a teepee and, puts warrior paint on and they wrestle together and they go hunt together. That builds the bond that makes unconventional warfare a very unique tool set that the regular military is not used to. They can't fathom how to make those that can barely fight barely a little better, because that will probably be enough to fight the enemy they're facing.
I think it's part of what I'm saying is like you see these guys that you slept on rocks with and eaten with, and then they're jumping on a little horse and they're going to go run at some machine gun fire, and you got to be like, damn, I like that guy.
Incredibly brave humans, great fathers, love their kids, love the idea of being left alone. This is my village, right?
That's all of us.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. See, right? They would share their last piece of rice with you. These people are lost in time and tradition, and yet the world always comes there to fight and rumble.
Yeah, and loses in the end.
You know what I mean? It's like, why? It's like, can we have a fight in Thailand on the beach there? I'd love to have a 3-minute war so we can go scuba diving after.
Well, that's on its way. I don't know if you're paying attention to the South China Sea, but, coming to a war theater near you.
Yeah.
Did you ever get like feedback from command about progress or lack of, or congratulations toward? Or
I think, there's kind of this famous report from Mark that talks about you just sitting around and doing nothing. At the time, we didn't have enough battery power to send this description. So you had to use brevity codes and all kind of coding. AZ26Y meant my bundle came last night. You know what I mean? So there's all this stuff. So this picture wasn't being painted of what really was happening on the ground. And I think Mark finally wrote out in the open this report of basically, we linked up with a mujahideen on horseback. I've watched a man missing a leg walk 10 miles in the snow with no shoes to get into the fight. We killed 120 yesterday. We're killing more. You know what I mean? It was just this holy crap. Right. And that's what Mark didn't realize is all the way up to President Bush was reading it. So when he said it, that message, the tone at the end was kind of a big fuck you. We're barely surviving here.
Yeah.
Well, President Bush loved it, being from Texas. Every colonel and general read between the lines that a young captain was telling them to, pound sand, send more bullets.
And Bush was like, go get her.
Yeah, that's when America knew something about Horse Soldier. The other part is when they sent in, they were afraid that a captain was talking to a general-like equivalent, and the colonels convinced them to send in colonels. And their communications sergeant is the one that leaned back and took a photo of the original, guys on the ridge on horses. Well, if you recall back in 2001, 1 megapixel cameras was a lot. That 1 megapixel going over the satellite system tied up the entire network for a few hours.
Wow.
So finally, they had a photo for Rumsfeld to show what America's response was.
Wow. Yeah, I remember that.
Because everybody's like, what's going on? Where's the battleships? Where's the tanks? What America thought war should be. And then he was able to quell them. And then as things always go downhill, whoa, slow them down. I've got to get my tanks and airborne troopers and everything back in here. And ta-da, 20 years later. Ta-da.
Yeah, drop a few daisy cutters later and, there you go.
There's nothing like a good remote, sparsely populated area of the world to test all your stuff out. Usually it's in Nevada,
right.
It's in the deserts in New Mexico, but hey, we got a whole nother place that we can do Moabs.
You had to know that Halliburton was calling Cheney.
Like, please.
Yeah. I mean, he was the CEO of Halliburton before he was vice president. I mean, they seem to do rather well throughout the war.
That's the machine. Look at the Roman army, right? They had the pleasure trail, they had the cook trail, they had the elephant saddle makers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, they shit in their hands too, so it was a little different with the Roman army. So,
but see, that is the history of warfare, right? War is good business, and what does that mean?
Yeah.
It means it's the only business where you get to break things. You have to buy new things, and then you break them again. Then you buy more new things, and you break them again. So it is kind of a good center of destruction that spreads a lot of money around.
Look,
I didn't see any of that money, but somebody. That's okay.
Yeah, you're a hero, and I've talked to many heroes on my program that. I don't know about the money being spread around, but some of your body parts have been spread around. Certainly some skin.
Well, now you know why I'm a big veterans advocate. I saw the beginning of this. I sat at very senior levels when I retired, and I saw the laissez-faire-ness of war. Only 4 people killed today. Where are we going to go eat lunch, Jerry?
Yeah, pass the salt.
10 injured. Let's stop by the hospital and shake their hand, Bob. We became used to it, and so much so that the population became used to it. We had so many nonprofits. You had the Wounded Warrior Pride. You had all of these mechanisms of private and the VA and $200 billion. Nobody was rioting, forcing the government to change. Nothing. It just became, another day at job. Back to the Powell Doctrine. His philosophy was use the devastating, cohesive, collective force of military might to force surrender and capitulation, and then don't get involved in the crap show afterwards because you can't unwind it. And the military's job is to do military things. What we found in Afghanistan, we asked company commanders to be mayors and sergeants to dig wells and lieutenants to manage international relief funds.
Nation building.
And we put this burden on one side of the triad of the U.S. government and gave a pass to the others. And we pinned this on the failure of the military. No, we beat them in every battle.
Who pins this on the failure of the military?
If you look at the narrative today, who are we trying to point a finger at?
I would point a finger at the executive branch, certainly the do-nothing legislative branch, who has done their job if their job is absolutely fucking nothing. And no cohesive strategy and no understanding that we cannot export democracy. It's not something you can export. Who gave it to us? Nobody. We fought, we died for it, we value it. When you go topple a dictator and say, here's democracy, they're like, what's this? I just wanted a better dictator. And they don't appreciate it. And when you're putting lieutenants in charge of nonprofits and think that's not their job.
Exactly. Well, I tire. You know what I mean? Here we are as veterans sitting here talking about these issues when there's not other levels of conversation reflecting backwards for the last 20 years. We're already preparing our modern forces for China and Russia. So if you think about Ranger School, why was Ranger School started? To take the lessons of Vietnam and patrol-based operations to small unit leaders. So as lieutenants that were in Vietnam became colonels and generals, they knew that they needed some kind of mechanism to remind themselves of small unit fights and activities, right? So now look at us today. We are now out of Afghanistan. Everybody's boo-boo hurt, but those have been told to plan for big ships and big planes and big interstellar ballistic ninja ray missile thingies. And this small counterterrorism message, this small counterinsurgency thing is like, that was yesterday. And the institutions of our military, do we think honestly that this tool of terrorism and small unit warfare, urban guerrilla warfare is gone? No.
It's the most effective.
But the only ones talking about it are veterans that have no influence in policy or military decision making.
Well, if we think it's gone, we'll get to see people using it against us for the foreseeable future, effectively.
You know.
And as far as, China and Russia are, look, if you ask me, I think they're already coordinated. I think that, Russia starting conflicts in Ukraine and on our kind of eastern front there allows China to go in and take Taiwan, which they will do.
Yeah.
You know how I know they're going to do it? They said so.
They have time. You know what I mean? Yeah. Everybody's told us what they're going to do. It's, do we believe that they're going to do it? And what do we have the capability or the desire or the resources that's in our best interest to counter?
You think we could counter taking Taiwan?
I think I am suspect of the political will today and the resources given the amount of debt load that we have and how we have the ability to sustain heavy casualties and degradation of our ships and things.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Well, they had it came out the beginning of the year or maybe end of last year. They have had special operators there for like a year and a half. I mean, what are they showing the Taiwanese military to slow down China?
They're showing them a lot, and they're going to make it painful for them.
It's like fantasy football, right? We're over here tiring what the Giants are going to do, and maybe the quarterback's good.
Any kind of team you're going to put together on that fantasy team would say there's going to be a catastrophic loss of life on both sides, and we don't have the political will for that, and we're not going to do that. There'll be a very big price to pay for China, hopefully, but it's not going to be us giving them two carriers sunk to the bottom of the sea.
Good reason to cancel all this $1 trillion of debt, right?
Well, look, everybody talks about, how China owns us. Look, they have less than $1 trillion out of $30 trillion in debt. So when we start canceling debt, we need to remember we owe ourselves 80 to 90% of that money, unfunded pensions, liabilities.
Yeah.
So that's who's not going to get paid, you and me. That debt is to us. You're just selling bourbon now. You're not worried about it. You've started your own class warfare with a glass.
I heard that they love exceptional bourbon in China, especially in their casinos. So, you know what?
They do.
Macau.
Exactly. See, I'm doing my part, right? I'm a patient.
You're doing the Ray Dalio method where you're not gonna trash China too much because you're gonna sell them bourbon.
Exactly. Delicious, yummy bourbon. You know what I mean? There's a lot of history about softening your enemy through social measures.
Yeah, it worked on me. So tell us about where you are with the bourbon. You came back out of the Army and you decided to become a very successful businessman. Congratulations.
I did decide, I hoped I'd become a very successful businessman. Number one, when you leave the military, we all have our journey. Imagine being from all walks of the United States, and you're thrown into this kind of basic training format that takes you from an individual thinker to a collective thinker. You know exactly where you are in the Borg, right? I'm a private, I got a corporal that's got a sergeant, that's got a, you know what I mean, a squad leader to a platoon leader, and there's a lieutenant that tells me what to do. And if I didn't get paid that week, I go see the pay clerk. And if I got a boo-boo, I'm walking over here to the medic. And God damn it, I love America. And let me sing ballads of heroism and admire that person over there with the Bronze Star. Then one day you either retire or you get out and you're nobody. You don't have things upon your chest. People don't stand up when you enter a room or salute you when they walk by, right? You're going to the grocery store and it's like, get out of my way. Let me push you aside. So there's a transition emotionally and mentally and physically when you leave service about who am I and what can I do? And what I became frustrated was there was a big, big fat narrative that you were broken and only this government agency or this nonprofit has your solution. My God, let me hug you and get you inside of that. And what we forgot to tell veterans is this is America. You can live the American dream you've been defending. Our grandfathers all came home and did what? They opened a plumbing store. They went to True Value. They got their loan for the first time. Look at the government programs that did work. The GI Bill, the VA home loan, vocational skills, not going back to college, you know, and spending 4 years. We built these mechanisms to get our veterans into the economy. So as I looked across the spectrum with the Green Beret Foundation, we had these Green Berets that were now making $1,000 a day carrying a gun, but yet more of them were getting injured and killed as civilian contractors than were on active duty. And how do you invest $3.2 million to make a good Green Beret? And then the country sheds them. There's no certificate. The medics couldn't even get civilian evaluation. So I said, let's spend some money and design a program that teaches them how to be entrepreneurs. So we had a big fundraiser in New York City. We honored Roger Ailes, the head of Fox News at the time. Fundraising is easy. Find the richest guy, give him an award. They'll invite all the rich buddies.
Right.
You know what I mean? You get money. So on the stage, I told everybody about the program and I said, I quit. If I can't walk off this stage and start a business and go through these journeys of transition, you deserve your money back. And that was 2015. So I walked off the stage. My wife looks at me going, what the hell did you just do? I said, hey. So I followed the steps. Number one, find a mentor. I did. Went to Yellowstone for a month to find myself. I did.
Who is your mentor?
My mentor is my business partner now, John Coco. Successful Green Beret agency, became a owner of some insurance businesses that went public, then private, then split. During that come back to nature, forget the world experience, we went to our first craft distillery. And it was awesome. It was the Grand Teton Distillery in Driggs, Idaho. And we had just done a 10-day horse and mule pack train up the Yellowstone River. And we thought we deserved those free tastings. And it became so much fun that we Googled where the next one was, and then the next one, and the next one. It took us 3 weeks to get back to Tampa. And that's when John's mom said, you drunks need a hobby. So we called up other guy, Mark and Bob, and we went to Scotland and we did the trail. But Mark's friend from the SAS had started a new Scotch distillery called Wolfburn. It was in Thurso, the northernmost city. So we said, hey, can we come up there and we want to operate the stills. We want to learn how to make it, not just be a tourist at the Velvet Rope getting a free sample at the end. So he said, come on up. So we spent a few weeks there. We came home. Somebody asked, what's the difference between Scotch and Irish whiskey? So we went to Ireland. We went and see the Teeling brothers. It just sold Kelbagan to Beam, I think Centauri, for about $500 million, and started their facility in Dublin. We went to Kelbagan, we went to Canuck, and we came home. We went into Kentucky, and we started to use our previous skills as a team to understand the opportunity of building a brand, building a product, meticulously adhering to disciplines and principles, and then the competitiveness of 1,000 other whiskey companies trying to attract a consumer. So it's called psychological operations.
Yeah, psychops.
Yeah. Marketing, promotion, right? Messaging, narratives, good guy, bad guy. Yeah, we already had the skills. So we launched our brand. We kind of formed the business, didn't even know what to call it. Nobody knew about Horse Soldiers until that movie came out. And we had already been making some barrels, and it kind of accelerated us bringing, we finally decided on Horse Soldiers because we couldn't even think of another whiskey name. Wolf Creek, Bear, Dung Lodge, Tree Leaf, Willow.
Wolfpack.
I mean, how do you begat a name these days? It's hard. And then legally capture the IP. So then the movie came out, and we didn't even have anything in a bottle yet. And they wanted us to be part of the premiere in New York City. So we threw some stuff in a bottle. We took it up there. We had a lot of fun that I don't remember any of. And that next morning we flew back to Florida, and we saw a distributor for the first time that talked about putting us in distribution. That was it.
Good day.
So our first year, we went from 3,000 cases to this year, we finished with 60,000 six-pack cases. We're in 14 states. We just broke ground on a $240 million, 6 million gallon facility in Kentucky. Right? We opened a restaurant here in Tampa, just received best restaurant according to Open Table, all of these metrics. And I looked at the plan from day one. All we're doing is executing our plan. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to go deep, not wide. Who's ever played Risk here?
Yeah.
Do you just spread your men all across the map, or you bunch up?
Take Asia and you'll win.
Yes. See, and that's what we knew. We knew why leave Florida until we own Florida? Why leave Texas until we own Texas? So we've had a very deliberate marshaling of resources, money. The number one ingredient in whiskey is money. I don't care what anybody says. It's not corn. It's not limestone water. It's money.
Well, how much do you think it costs to start up to begin with?
$5 million.
Okay, that's doable.
For a bunch of broke vets, that's a lot of money.
I mean, that's what I meant to say. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, and what is 60? We said 600 cases you sold last year, or 60,000?
60,000 cases.
60,000.
6 barrels.
What does that equal in revenue these days?
13, 14 million.
And you plan on doing what in this year?
100,000.
Okay.
Oh,
so,
big growth.
Yeah, you're going to get to $20 million, that'll be great.
Yeah, but I need 40 million to grow to 12 million. So I need barrels. I need every dollar I make instantly goes into producing more.
Right.
If I could sell more, I could sell more, but I can't sell more because I don't have more to sell.
Right.
Right. So it's a stair step. Once again, it is about marshaling of resources, and a dollar's a dollar. What helped our company, most people don't realize, we barely pay ourselves. Luckily, we have a retirement that augments that. So everybody wants to count all your dollars for you. Think that you're millionaires and trillionaires, and oh my God, you guys are doing so well. We're like, we're fine. All of our needs as friends are met, but we have what we need, not what we want. So what we want to do is continue to grow the brand. We continue to invest into more production, more barrels. We continue out of pocket to pay for designers and engineers and schematics for our Kentucky build. You know what I mean? You have to invest.
And Kentucky's not built yet, right?
No, it's going to take about 3 years.
Oh, okay. What's the production going to be there?
6 million gallons, 250,000 cases.
I think that'll do it.
Yeah.
Just got to get it done. Get her done.
Get this. By the time it's built, say it's 3 years, by the time those barrels age, it's 10 years. Some of us may not be alive when it happens.
Yeah. Carl and I.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why we're building a legacy for our families. I can't give them war medals. I can't give them an old Foot Locker full of I love me's, right? What can I give my kids?
Right.
Is a legacy in a business. And that's what happened after World War II. Soldiers came home. They admired each other at the VFW and they did parades on 4th of July, but they got back to work. And that's what we're doing.
Well, it sounds great. I think you guys are well on your way. I've tried your whiskey. I have. It's good whiskey. Where can people get it? Tell us. Some people are going to want to order it.
So this is the modern era. There is the 14 states. Let me see if I can recollect here. Obviously, Florida to Texas, Arizona, Nevada, Montana, California. Then this year we'll be in North Carolina, Pennsylvania. We're already in Virginia, New York, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky, Kansas. So those are the physical places you should be able to find them at your favorite liquor store. If not, say, why not? Where's Horse Soldier? You can go online. You have all the traditional online providers from Reserve Bar to Caskers to wine.com. And then even on our website, it looks like us, but it's a third party that can be delivered Horse Soldier, for those that are in the states that we're not physically in.
You have more than one bottle, right?
Right. So we have three main ones. We have the straight bourbon whiskey, which is more of a higher rye. So think of Eagle Rare or Woodsford. It's got enough peppery or spice, and it's a great mixer for your old fashions, your Manhattans. Then our second one, it's like Baby Bear, Mama Bear, Papa Bear. So Mama Bear is actually our first wheated at 95 proof. Right. So good wheat bourbon is like your Weller's, your LaRue's, I think Maker's Mark is a wheated, your Fitzgerald's, Pappy's, and then our barrel strength. And our barrel strength is full Papa Bear. It can range from 110 to 124.
Ooh.
Right. It makes you incredibly handsome. And after about 4 of these, we should really get into politics.
And strong.
You know what I mean?
Right. And then religion.
And trigonometry. Yes. And then we have a fourth one that's called Commander Select. And these are aged. We've created a lot of relationships at the warehouses throughout Kentucky and the world. And we wanted something, our very first one, Commander Select 1, was an 8-year-old wheated bourbon, beautiful pewter label in a box. And we charged $595.
Wow.
Why $595? That was the team number. ODA 595. And the money we received is what we donated back to the statue and America's response at Ground Zero. So then the next year, we only made 1,000 that first year. Next year, we did 2,000 of a 12-year-old. So we called it Commander Select 2. And we started getting invited to charities to kind of tell the story like I'm telling now. And then we would live auction a bottle. Some of our Commander Select last year I did for Tunnels to Towers and Frank Siller, $75,000 for 2 bottles.
Wow.
Right?
That's a lot of bourbon.
That's very good.
That's a lot of money.
Well,
it's a way to tell a story that raises money for a good cause.
Well, yeah, Frank does phenomenal work. The Tunnel to Towers is great.
He is, and to become a very good friend. I've done it for other very quiet organizations that have quiet fundraising necessities that the world should never know about, all the way to something for the Green Beret Foundation, to a local VFW. You know what? You want to have a bunch of motorcycle guys over? No problem. Let's bring a couple signed bottles of the Horse Soldier and see if we can get a couple $100 for you.
Yeah.
So it's part of our culture to tell the story and to give back, and it's what we do. We just finished a monument right next to our place here in St. Petersburg, Florida. It was one of the last pieces of World Trade Center steel recovered. I raised about $500,000 during COVID. A hard time to shake money out of the community during that time, but we did, and it's very beautiful. So this brand, we don't support one charity, we support them all.
Well, you do a great job. And for all the listeners that I have, and I know many of you have functions, organizations, if you're as tired of seeing Dick Fold get up on stage and complain about how we caused the Lehman collapse. If you're as tired of that as I am, Scotty is a great guy. He does a great presentation, and Scotty Neal brings whiskey with him without complaints. Yeah, he's not going to complain about, he only made $1 billion instead of $2 billion. He's just going to come up there and tell you a great story and give you some whiskey.
No good story ever started over a salad. You're at a crappy fundraiser when they start with a salad, right?
Yeah, they're all crappy fundraisers.
Scotty, I just got to say, and you reminded me of raising the money during COVID. The story I think I've heard you tell before of how you got the mold to make the glass bottles, where that metal came from.
On every label, if you look down below on the paper portion, it says forged in fire. And there's a lot of hidden meanings in our bottles. Forged in fire, when we were looking at our own glass supplier, you could go to China for cheap. You could get it out of Mexico for cheaper. And it looks like everybody else's. How many times you looked on the back bar and you've seen, the same bottle, different label? So we wanted something. And then when we discovered how much it actually costs to design your own bottle, we about fell out of our chair. And I said, well, what is that? I mean, is that gold or is that spaceship meteorite metal or something? I mean, why does it cost so much money? And they told me the type and quality of steel. That triggered my memory of what the steel was from the World Trade Center. I made this deal that if I was to get some excess steel, can I get a discount? So it turned into kind of this, this kind of, we're broke vets, can you help a brother out? Not this marketing Madison Avenue, hey, we're going to use it for this and people are going to recognize it. It really came about because we were that broke. And so all of our molds have World Trade Center steel. They form the bottle. It's not the metal label. And, to those that it matters for, it does. Those that don't, I don't care.
Yeah,
I don't care. Whiskey's good in it too. And I didn't do it for the boost. I did it because we were a struggling veteran-owned company trying to begin a brand.
And you needed some steel, and the fallen World Trade Center had some to spare.
Well, relationships. Relationships matter. We have the statue at Ground Zero called America's Response Monument. The person in charge of all of those activities, his son's a Green Beret. You know what I mean? It's all in the family. Yep. You just have to talk to people and see where the touch points are. We're very proud of it because it means so much to us. We're very surprised on how it touches other people. And then those that want to be critics and cynics, I don't care. Now, if you want to watire about why my whiskey, I would love to listen to your opinion about why my whiskey sucks. Because then I usually ask you, how much have you made? And can I taste your exceptional whiskey?
Oh, yeah. People tell you your whiskey sucks.
Oh, yeah. They love to.
Really?
This is the time of very brave men on the internet with lofty goals and opinions after they read at least 3 books.
Yeah. Sounds like Mark Chodes. Yeah. Yeah, I got a lot of anonymous turds and trolls on the internet too. Yeah. That and I've said to all my guys, if you can't say it in your name, don't say it at all.
I don't mind people saying I want to learn, right? I want to learn what people think and opinions.
The anonymous people don't say it, and they're not saying anything that anybody wants to hear.
So once again, I'm not phased. You know what I mean? I don't take it personal, right? I'll take the Pepsi challenge any day of the week. I admire those that are better than me because that's how I'm going to get better.
Now, look, you have good bourbon. I'm a bourbon drinker.
Thank you.
That's why I'm having you on the show.
4 out of 5 dentists highly recommend my bourbon.
Who is that 5th dentist?
I don't see.
Yeah, you just don't know.
Probably because he's missing his teeth right now. I don't know.
And it's always anonymous. You don't know.
Yes.
So tell us, where can we find you and your product online? So where can we find you on Twitter?
Now remember, say it 3 times fast. Horse Soldier Bourbon.com.
HorseSoldierBourbon.com. HorseSoldierBourbon.com. HorseSoldierBourbon.com.
He did.
When you have a few drink, it sort of sounds like Horse Shoulder.
Yeah.
I've had them all. I've even been in meetings of very important people that my placard in front of me was Horse Shoulder.
That's
Really?
fantastic.
Yeah, it's like,
That's going to be your top of the line right there. That's going to be past commander.
yeah,
Yeah.
y'all want to cry on it. We do have a website. We have great content. If you want to go to our YouTube site, I like to consider us as old guy Red Bull. In 2019, we jumped into the 75th anniversary of D-Day in original World War II outfits and on C-47 cargo airplanes. We went and got round canopy parachute qualified again. Our kids jumped with us. Before that, we learned how to sail and we entered a regatta and got second. Bunch of Army guys learning how to sail. This year in March, we got technical dive certified and we're working with the DOD, POW, MIA agency to dive in Saipan on 2 old Avenger wrecks and trying to recover the air crews and repatriate them with their families.
Wow.
Those are the things as friends who serve together, we still do. We get drunk together, we fight, we go to each other's kids, plays and volleyball games. This is a family of families business, and we have a lot of responsibilities to each other to be the best at the angle. One worries about sales, one worries about business, one does this. That's the truth of our brand is, we're taking a stab at the American dream. And we're kind of cool because it's whiskey.
Sounds wonderful. Everybody's got a better life than I do. It's HorseSoldierBourbon.com.
Yes.
Scott Neal, an American hero, and taking his time for us today. I very much so appreciate it. Buy his whiskey and, hey, invite him to come speak at your event. I don't think he's going to be as boring as one of your demigod masters of the universe telling you about the German boon and what it's going to be worth, and you might get some whiskey out of it. All right?
I do a hell of a puppet show.
And he does it with horses. All right, Scotty. And thank you all for joining us on The Wolf Den. I Hung Up on Warren Buffett podcast. If you liked what you heard, give us a retweet, give us a like. If you don't like what you heard, remember what I always say, I don't care.